5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Zap. Zap.
Oh, be nice.
Welcome to Sacrilicious with Robin and Snurts, a Simpsons review podcast. I'm your lovable nerd Snurts, aka Joshua Stearns, and joining me is the equally delightful Robin. Don't have a cow, coward.
Hey, yo, Josh. How are you doing this fine Sunday?
I'm alive.
Good.
I'm alive. I'll be fine. Everything's gonna be okay.
Everything's going to be fine.
Just fine.
Everything's going to be fine, Josh.
There's
It's
no
all gonna
fire
be
behind me.
It's going to be fine.
We're
It's gonna
good.
be fine.
Everything's fine.
Civil liberties may change, but we're going to work through this together.
Yes. Yeah. And for folks at home, sorry that we missed our initial air date. It was supposed to be today, I think, but instead we're recording. So this will be coming out on the 16th. Now, obviously, you know that because you'll see it in your feed at that time. But for those of us who was looking forward to an episode drop today, we apologize. Life just got busy for both of us, and we were not able to make the time to do a proper episode, which is why we pushed it back. But we promised one episode in November, and we are giving you one episode in November.
And it's a very special episode.
That's right. And if this is your first episode, here's how it works. One of us will pick an episode of The Simpsons to discuss. We go through the plot, provide questionable impressions, and point out our favorite bits. So this week, Robin picked Homer's Phobia from Season 8, Episode 15, directed by Mike B. Anderson and written by Ron Hauge. First air date of February 16th, 1997.
Did you get a pronunciation on that?
So he said his name
guess?
at the beginning of the commentary, and it was different than the last time I pronounced it, which I called it like Hagi. But I fucked up again, and I probably will do it in the future. So I apologize, Ron, if you're ever listening.
It's not Hague.
But he's
Hagi?
It sounds more like hoagie, but with a ha.
Hagi.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's
Hauge.
He was on the commentary for the DVDs, and I listened to it 3 times, and I still couldn't memorize it. So that's something I need to improve on. Is that
it's like girders and garters.
I have a hard time with certain names, and it's.
I think we all do.
Something I should improve on, but yet here we are.
I mean, we're chasing 50 here. I don't know much improving we got left in us here.
Well, also, when you mispronounce it 5 times and then you get it sort of right once, it's not really helping the scales. It's not helping the scales at all. You still said it wrong.
That's
5
something to
times.
Celebrate, when you sort of get it right once out of the back. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, man. All right, so I did some wiki research. Wiki research. So this was the first episode written by Ron, and George Meyer pitched Bart the Homo's initial idea for the episode, while the showrunners Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, the goats, were planning an episode involving Lisa discovering the joys of campy things. So they decided to pretty much mix the chocolate with the peanut butter, and that's how we got Homer's Phobia. This was the first show to revolve entirely around gay themes and received a positive critical episode, both for its humor and anti-homophobia message. And when I misspoke there, it's not like the first show, but it's the first episode in this show. So sorry for that. It won 4 awards, including an Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Program and a GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding TV of an Individual Episode in 1998.
Which is a big deal. I mean, winning a GLAAD award on this, you're tackling a subject at the time. And it's actually important to the discussion, I think, because some of the themes didn't quite translate to modern times for me. It's amazing how far we've come in 25 years. So it's good context to know that at the time, it was very well received by the gay community.
Well, and I think one of the reasons this is a positive outcome overall is usually gay people were the butt of jokes. And in this episode, Homer is the one being made fun of. Homer is the one who's acting ridiculous. So instead of just
what was the date on this, Josh?
The date was 1997, February 97.
So they were recording it, as they said, well earlier, like
So this would have been 96.
96. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ellen's coming out air date was April 30th, 1997.
Yeah. There you
So,
go.
I mean, that was the seminal episode where somebody was gay.
Right. And
And this
that's
came
why I
out
wanted to correct
right around then. That's impressive.
that's why I wanted to correct my misspeaking, because there was other shows that were around at this time. When was Will and Grace coming out? Wasn't that another big?
That came out the following year, 98 started. I
Yeah.
looked that up too. And so
Yeah.
they really were one of the very first. And you caught yourself, but this really was right there with Ellen as the first time it was ever spoken about, which is so important. To see that was very good, just to have some representation on mainstream television. But you notice they said they still couldn't say the word gay. That is the word that they banned from through the censors was the word gay, which seems so innocuous now.
Yeah.
But that was the one. And I think they said also that Homer was going to use a slur that they ended up taking out, which was probably a good choice. Even
Yeah,
at
I
that
mean, if they
time.
would have dropped the F word or something like that, and it's not fuck,
No.
I think it would have been an issue. Also, I like this episode because the character that John Waters plays, John, reminds me of folks that I knew growing up who were gay. Like my uncle Michael we'd watch Dark Crystal, and he would buy us weird marble roller coaster sets, and you know. There was this guy Richard who was roommates with my godmother Grace, who was a gay man. He was actually related to the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz,
Oh, no kidding.
weirdly enough, and he did drag and other things as well.
Yeah.
And we'll come to it, but like he almost knew more about The Simpsons than I did when I was a kid. So
We were just talking about that.
right. So I really I am not gay myself, but I know so many people who are, and it's always good to see people from your family, from your peer groups represented in TV and popular culture in general. And I thought The Simpsons did a good job on this.
Well, growing up gay in the South, as I did right during this time, this would have been my sophomore year in college.
Yeah.
And it was not easy. And it actually was very, very difficult for me because at the time we still had the Michael Jackson jokes and we still had all of those. And we were using gay slurs left
All
and
the
right.
time. Yeah. Yeah.
And so to have, I was very lucky in my family, before I was even, cognizant as a human being. My mother grew up in New Orleans, and she and my father had lots of, my cousin was gay, was one of their best friends always. Uh, they had a lot of gay people in their life through our church, the last of a group that we used to party with all the time, Episcopalians. But that is not the experience of most people. And most people, it was very, very hidden at this time, and really something that caused me a ton of aggravation and stress throughout my life. Still stuff I'm dealing with. A lot of people too. So to make these steps and do episodes like this was so goddamn important.
Yeah. And you also have the stigma of the AIDS crisis and how that was handled.
Big time.
So a lot of that stuff was kept under wraps, and I remember seeing my uncle wither away from that terrible disease.
Ugh.
And I did not really understand it at the time because I was a middle schooler, and I didn't really know what was going on, but it felt weird, and it felt like it was hidden, and it didn't feel like other people I knew at school was going through similar things, even though they probably were, because I don't think this stuff was talked about. I don't remember talking about AIDS when I was in middle school or high school, and that was in the 90s. So
Do you remember there's a famous movie called Amazing Grace and Chuck, about Chuck was a kid, and they used to do this all the time about kids who got AIDS through uh, blood
injecting.
infusions.
Oh, blood infusions. Okay.
And so he got it, and there's this stigma, and that movie was about AIDS, but he was also like this passionate, like anti-nuke, protester.
Okay.
And then the most famous basketball player, Amazing Grace, who was kind of like Michael Jordan, came and they paired up and they got them to make changes in the world.
This sounds
Um,
really terrible.
oh yeah, it was not a good movie, but these are where we started to hear about those things. I'm actually conflating two different stories. That was a nuclear story that did not. There was another separate one that had the kid with AIDS in it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Well, and
mixing
then,
the
if
two
it
stories
wasn't
up.
for like Magic Johnson getting HIV and then Princess Diane,
Yeah.
touching stuff. I mean, really, fuck Reagan with his response to the whole
Oh,
thing. That was
fuck
just
Reagan. And
goddamn
that's what
awful.
we were living through. It was,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
was 7 years old in 1985 when all this
Yeah.
stuff was, yeah.
So, enough of that serious stuff. Let's move on to some more fun things. The steel mill scene was written by Steve Tompkins. He first pitched that Homer and Bart would encounter longshoremen, but it was too much work to animate the landing of ships, so a steel mill was used instead.
One of the
And
best scenes in this whole episode, of course.
yes, and we'll get that into it more. And then John Walters is on the DVD commentary, which was a treat. I forgot that they got him back to participate along with the usual
Yeah.
suspects. So
When
that was
when
kind of
I
fun.
was listening to the commentary and he was the special guest, because I love John Waters, because he was, as you said, kind of his own icon, but
Yes.
also gay. He wasn't just gay; he was larger than life in his personality beyond all of that, and absolute trip, and one of those weirdos that I just love.
Yeah, I mean, he has a cult status,
Oh
like
yeah,
cult classic
absolutely.
movies, working with like Divine and stuff to that nature.
We
And
were talking about
I've never
we've
seen
neither
any
of
of
us
his
seen many of his
movies,
movies.
but I've listened to him in interviews. And
Oh
I
yeah,
like him as a guest star here on The Simpsons. And he seems like a great guy with a very unique perspective. And I kind of like how he comes from Baltimore. Like he comes from like,
yeah,
the industrial
Maryland.
Northeast. And so that's kind of a very interesting take on life, so where you're seeing
Yeah.
the blue collar heart of average America, so to speak, right, but also like wildly camp and fabulous and gay.
Yes, camping, the big word of it, of almost like Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of
Yes.
fun. So John Waters, we were talking about the movies. His famous ones are Pink Flamingos, which was the first one he did with Divine, which I have not seen. Hairspray, which was his probably biggest movie, his best movie that he's best known for, I would say, perhaps, but I'm not an expert on this subject. You have Crybaby with Johnny Depp, which just I didn't get at the time. I was
Johnny
not the
Depp,
right
huh?
age.
Wow, that must have been a young Johnny Depp.
Yes, quite. It was just after he'd done like 21 Jump Street, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay, yeah, baby
Um,
face.
and very much so, that was kind of the whole thing, and he
Yeah.
cried, and it was the joke. I should watch it at
Okay.
some point again. But he also did Serial Mom with Kathleen Turner, one of my favorites. But he's done a lot of those movies back in the day. He's still around with us today.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
Yeah.
thankfully.
But
Yeah.
but on the commentary, he was great. Like, he's just a very great speaker, kind of like naturally hilarious.
Yeah, he's very good in a conversation setting.
Yeah.
That's why I think he'd be perfect for podcasting, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, so this is your episode, so we're going to dive into it. I know you liked the beginning of it with Super Bardo Jackpot. You want to give us an explanation of what this was?
Well, so first we skipped the gags, which is okay, but I did want to mention the couch gag was them trying to load it, and it's like
Through
stalled out.
AOL. Yeah. AOL
And
loader.
it's like so then they're trying to hit the exit button,
Yeah.
and like to close the program, and they've just frozen their computer, and it is really actually very well done, and something that everybody experienced back then, and it happened all the time. It's very frustrating.
Did your brain get triggered by the noise that the clicking made?
Is
Is that why you brought it up?
100%, 100%. And I was gonna skip it over as we often do, but then I watched it like the second time, and I was like, wow, that's actually well done. But
Nice.
yes, we start in the basement, and all the neighborhood kids are there with Bart, and they've written numbers on baseballs and sneakers, and I think there's a grapefruit or a cantaloupe in there or something.
There's a
Uh,
cantaloupe and what looks to be like a ballerina shoe, or like a
exactly.
smile
But
child
what is
shoe.
that? What is the game? So like,
It's the lottery.
it's like a race. Um, but they, how do you decide which one wins? I
I
can't figure out the game, Josh.
I think you were just gonna pull one out,
I got
and
you.
that's the one that wins. But
It's too big.
I
You could
wasn't really
see
overthinking it.
everything. You could choose it. So
I do
anyway, the
like how
ballerina shoe.
the shoe is the one that causes everything,
It
like
gets
getting stuck
stuck
in
in
the
the door and
doorway.
like it starts shaking, and it's
Yeah,
great animation. We both loved it.
yeah.
So this just starts violently shaking. Bart's desperately trying to hit the off button.
And it's
It
shot
rips
very
off the
much
wall.
like your classic, like I gotta hit the button in a movie before
Yeah,
like the big
absolutely.
explosion goes off. You know, it's like must hit button. You know, and then the flames start coming out of the back because it's connected to the gas line. Why is their dryer connected to a gas line? I don't think that's
Well,
how
they
it
are.
works
That's how
anymore.
you would get your heat prior. Now then you have electric dryers, but that was absolutely the thing. I think mine might
Really?
be. No, I don't think mine is gas anymore. A lot of them aren't, but they all used to be.
You get that lovely gas smell all over your clothes. Like what the fuck, people?
They smell terrible, but they were dry.
No, they were
But
dry.
I love how after it explodes and everybody starts screaming and running up the stairs,
Yes.
and Bart, the miscreant, as I love to say, the grifter, he's like, "No refunds, force majeure, read the back of your ticket."
Yeah.
And he's a
Yeah.
pro. He's a pro at this.
Yep.
So
Now they're stuck
they've
with a
destroyed the. What'd you say?
$900 repair bill now for Bart's
Yes, they've
little action.
destroyed the dryer.
Yeah.
But they also have a gas bill, apparently, because they were like shooting all the gas out with the fire or something.
Right.
That's a $900 gas bill that we're just gonna skip over. It doesn't make too much sense. And so they're like, I know you like this part where they're like, well, we're gonna have to dip into retirement fund again.
Yep.
Did you catch the deleted scene there?
Well, I don't remember the deleted scene at the beginning of this part. I only remember one deleted scene that showed up later when John was at the house.
So there's a deleted scene when he's like, we're gonna have to dip into the retirement fund, and Marge goes, we already blew the retirement fund, and he's like, the kids' funeral fund then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I missed that one. I must have missed the scissors when I was I might have been typing something.
So they don't have money to pay this, but they do have one thing, which is a giant water bottle, like a water cooler water bottle full of pennies. And you were saying, I know you liked this one too,
Yeah, I did.
where
Yeah, he's
Homer
trying to.
goes to like pick it up.
Yeah. And this is a 5-gallon jug of water filled to the brim with pennies. So if you ever
Yeah,
had water
it's heavy.
delivered to your home or office back in the day from like Sparklers or Arrowhead, this is the type of jug that he has. And I used to do this with whalebone glasses. So I would get the whalebone glasses from going to these like in Mexico when I went there for my senior trip when I was 18, and I brought a bunch of them back with me because like I don't know why. And I would have like these like 4 whalebone glasses on my shelf, and I would fill them all with pennies and quarters and loose change, and then I would take them in to the coin op machines.
Yep.
And get something like
We all did
like,
that.
and if I had all 4 of them, like I would get 30-40 bucks sometimes.
Yeah,
Depending on how many
absolutely.
quarters are in there. But I love how Homer, like he's such a dumb, lovable dog that he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna have small containers full of pennies. We're gonna go big, or we're gonna go home. And the cracking noise of his knees and back as he's like lifting this thing is hilarious.
It's violent.
And of course he drops it and it makes like a sinkhole, and he goes like, hey,
It's
China,
so heavy, it like
little
falls
help?
through the earth.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh man.
yeah.
Yeah.
As I get older, like the cracks in his back and his knees
Oh yeah.
a little too close to home. But so that's the last of their options for like
Yeah.
how they're gonna pay this $900 gas bill. And so Marge is like, well, I guess we'll have to sell my grandmother's Civil War figurine to pay for it. And Lisa's like, are you sure you want to sell this priceless family heirloom to pay a gas bill? She's like, I think she'd be happy that we had warm showers.
Yeah.
So,
She says we have hot water, piping hot water, and warm underwear is the exact quote. And I love this because when I was driving my grandfather late in his life to medical appointments and just being a good, you know,
Oh.
grandson, I asked him, I was like, "Oh, what's one of your earliest like positive memories?" And he says, "A hot water heater." He lived in Iowa,
Hmm.
and they got a corn husk hot water heater, and it was like the first time he was able to take a warm bath, and he was like 9.
Hell yeah.
So Marge's comment right there really hit home to me because I often
Yeah,
think about like
we,
anytime
I mean,
anytime I feel
understand.
bad about my life, where I'm driving the same car since I was in college, been in the same apartment for 12 years, kind of like just plotting day by day on life, I think to myself every once in a while, like, well, my ancestors would be fucking just
Psyched.
dying to get this kind of life.
Oh, hell yeah. Amen.
Yeah. So
So,
you ever feeling down on yourselves out there, folks? Just remember,
just
back in the day,
remember that
people
you
had
could
used the
take a hot
Sears
shower.
catalog to wipe their ass, and they didn't have hot water.
Oh, y'all had catalogs back then. That was bougie.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're gonna sell the grandma's Civil War figurine, and so they head to the one place in Springfield that you go for this, and it is a store of antiques and collectibles called Cockamamie's.
Yeah, and it's at something they had back in the day in the 90s called a mall.
Oh, those were good times. So
So
we
I,
got Seymour in there looking at old campaign buttons. Did you catch
yes,
this bit with like,
yes, I did.
"That's
Yeah, I thought it
my
was pretty funny.
Johnson. I fell for Dole.
Yeah, yeah, I like Dick.
Imbeciles for Ford. Quail can't fail with
There
a
you go.
Fayle, and click with Dick.
Oh, it's Click with Dick. Okay, I knew Dick was there somewhere. I also think the Krusty statue that holds the sign that says "We buy antiques and collectibles" looks a little
Yep,
off. And you
it
mentioned
is.
in our pre-record chat that it reminded you of Ronald McDonald.
Yeah,
Uh,
because like they were different, qualities of those old plastic figurines they used to put out. Like some looked a lot like Ronald McDonald, and some were the off-brand Ronald McDonald that didn't look quite right.
yeah, I mean it's like I would
But
imagine
those
if
are definitely collectibles, by the way.
with like Marge was at the Quickie Mart and they had like Rusty the Clown. It's
So they're looking around the store, and the store is filled with trinkets. It's yeah. I mean, it's basically your like curio shop where they have a bunch of different things here and there, and it's all camp stuff like old toys and old stuff from like old cult classic television
Yeah, so
series,
it's the kind of thing that
that kind of a place.
if you wanted a lamp that was a bowling pin, or a lamp that
Right,
had like a sexy leg, or a
right.
weird like alien thing that made weird noises and whatnot.
Yeah, like a
Um,
50s toy that is really out of date, but it's really kind of fun because of it,
yeah.
that sort of a. But they
And
have
they mentioned in the commentary that the way the artist was able to fill in all this background is they went to a sweatshop in the LA area and just started taking pictures of
not
things.
a
Or
sweatshop.
sorry, a
Swap meet.
swap meet, not
Yes,
sweatshop.
yes.
Sweatshop
I
is
hope it
different.
wasn't a
They
sweatshop,
went to the
Josh, but
sweatshop to like for the animation to get that done. They went
and
to
they
the
were
swap
taking
meet.
pictures of the possessions of the basically enslaved workers
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
No,
Anywho,
swap
swap
meet.
meet. Yes, thank you for the correction.
It's like an
But
old
I thought that was just kind of clever
roller
because like
skate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
why sit up there in your studio trying to come
And
up
make
with
stuff
stuff
up.
when you could
Yep.
just go like get some real life inspiration and draw it that way. I think I saw
So
like a couple like Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head in the background and
yeah,
some other random
exactly.
stuff like that.
Exactly. So there's like it's an odd little bit of an odd scene coming through with Bart and Lisa looking around. He finds the pogo stilts,
I love this, Tobias.
which
I
are
love it
like
so good.
classic, like super dangerous fucking like toys. He's floating around, then it goes flying off, and we have it smack Homer like hard.
Yeah.
He's like, ow, because pain is funny, as we
He
always say.
also said something along the lines of like, "Where did this come from?"
Where did this come from? Little
Because the
bits, those
animation,
little throwaway
it just
ones.
bounces violently off screen. It's very good.
It's funny how we'll talk about this stuff, and I will it like sinks in, and I love the joke even more as we start to discuss it, and I realize we both reacted to it the same. So there's a very odd then mention of the old alien from uh uh
No,
what's
it's
that
the
show,
robot
Lost
from
in
Lost in
Space.
Space. Danger,
They talk
danger,
about
Will
how there's a
Robinson.
midget inside,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like those poor midgets, which is a little
Well,
bit
and you looked
much.
this up too, and it was also around the time where that term was
Yeah,
like becoming more
it,
of
it was, and it's context
taboo.
that was
You know,
not as offensive to laymen
right?
that were not in that world.
But it is kind of
But then
wild that
it
they had a
pops
dead.
open, and
Yeah.
there's this midget
Yes.
skeleton
Yes.
inside, which is a very interesting choice. It's just one of those things in this, but it's so random too, like totally
Yeah.
unnecessary. Um, but
I don't know.
here's
I
where
have
we
those
now
thoughts
meet
though. Maybe
John
maybe
Waters.
it's because I'm a Simpsons fan. I do have those thoughts. I'm like, how many little people died to make R2D2 a thing?
I know. Listen. There is 100% a historical context for that.
Yeah.
That was
Oh, and
actually
also
happening.
like it, the little people were always getting work in industry, so I think that's one of the reasons it's brought up. I mean, from the Wizard of Oz to Willow, to Bad Santa.
Right.
People
Absolutely.
they've always been a part of the industry, so I think that's one of the reasons it was brought up as a joke. If you
Austin
have a camp
Powers.
store, you might as well have like the little thing will make a little person joke. So
A little person joke.
yeah.
It seems a bit aggressive. But anyway, so this is where we meet John Water.
Hi,
He's
I'm
the
John.
proprietor of the camp shop, and he is just super charming. And Marge is admiring the TV guide owned by Jackie O.
Yeah.
He's like, you should see the crossword. She thought it was what was the show, Mork and Mindy, and she thought it was Mark and Mindy. But we meet John Waters, and he's so good in this episode, Josh, and I know you agree. Like,
Yes.
he really does a wonderful job in this. And as we said, he was on the commentary too, and having him come on the commentary was really exciting, because I do love him. Since we don't know a lot of stuff, we don't quite know why we love him so much, but like both the episode and the commentary were super engaging because of him.
Yeah, I like how he comments on his whole look. All right, because he told the people who reached out to him from the show that I am not doing the show if you make me look like fucking Richard Simmons.
I love it.
He didn't want to be like super flaming, outgoing, ridiculous gay man, but they gave him more hair and they squiggled up his mustache so it doesn't look like it's a mistake drawing wise. And he agreed with. He loved the character design. He said it was.
It
so
looks
good.
very much like him.
And he said it was also a little weird that you asked me to come on your show to play a character named John, who's not myself.
It was a little odd, but I get it. Like, he's playing himself, playing a character.
Yes.
But he's so engaging with the family as well, and so he and Marge are bantering, and Homer is. And that's when they're like, he's like, what are you doing here, sillies? And they're like, it's an heirloom my grandmother passed down to me, a very rare old figurine from the Civil War. And Lisa's like, I don't know why, again, the Confederate, thing. Lisa's like, don't construe this as like an endorsement of slavery because it's got like Dixie flags on the motherfucking thing.
Oh no, it's a Confederate soldier with a flag with the stars and bars.
Well, it turns out it's a fake, and John's like, oh look, it's a Johnny Reb bottle, early 1970s, one of the J&R whiskey liquor lads. Like, there's a whole chain of like different lads. Like, there's like this guy, and there's like the astronaut.
He immediately like unscrews the top, like pours it into his mug, takes a swig, and goes, "That'll make your bull run."
Amazing. That'll make your bull run.
Amazing Civil War joke.
It's so, that'll make your bull run.
I love this other part where Marge is just like, well, I guess it'll always be a monument to Grandma's secret drinking problem. Another window into Marge's fucked up family, from sharing a Bible with her uncle Like, so grandma's secret drinking problem? Oh, Marge, my dear, I am so sorry. You
Uh,
thought Patty and Selma were the worst parts of her family. You would be wrong. You'd be very wrong.
She's so resilient.
Yes.
Marge is a stalwart,
Well, you also think
and
about it
should be
like, and then Homer
appreciated.
comes along and she's like, good enough. You
You
know,
see,
like,
but he's steady in a way.
but
Oof.
the consistent with love and all that other stuff. We
Oh,
don't have to get
goodness
into it
gracious
now,
me.
but it
Yes,
is
of
like it's
course.
kind of, you think about it like, okay, well, Marge's broken family, and then Homer was like, yeah, look at this, at least he loves me and cares for me.
Absolutely. But that is that line previous to that is one that I really did not remember, but it's now one of my favorite lines.
Oh
Ah,
yeah, as a history
that'll
buff.
make your bull run.
Yes. Oh, it's so good because it's so perfectly like Waters catty gay guy type of comment. Like it's great.
So Homer is trying to figure out what the hell this store is, and John's like, "It's camp." And Homer's like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, who would want to spend $50 on a kid's toy? Like, what kid is worth that much?" Little throwaway funny line there. And he's like, "It's camp, it's the tragically ludicrous or the ludicrously tragic." And Homer goes, "Oh yeah, like when a clown dies." And John's like, "Well, sort of, but I mean like inflatable furniture or Last Supper TV trays, or even this bowling shirt, which I know you would really enjoy. It's from what is the episode it's from?
Yeah, so it's when Homer was in the Pin Pals bowling shirt, and it even
That's
has
right.
Homer. And then John says something like, "Can you believe someone gave this to Goodwill?" Then Marge is like,
Er, that is a what is it? It says something about Homer. It's like number one Homer, or I can't remember. That's another great episode that we'll do at some point. But they have this rapport, and Homer ends up inviting John over to their house. So now we're at the Simpsons, and Marge is making like crackers, like Ritz crackers with like little
Cheese
faces
whiz
on them
and
for the
pimento
company,
nose. Yeah.
which is very camp. So the whole
Yes.
idea is like he's very excited to come to their house because they are very camp, a very Midwestern style. Although we do have lots of clues that they were not actually in the Midwest. There's a lot of Midwest in some of the things that they do, especially Marge, like the crackers. But he's just dying to visit this camp family, and he rings the doorbell. It's like a regular old ding dong. It's like ding dong, and Marge opens the door. He's like, ding dong. That's classic. Like he's just in love with everything in the house is camp, and he's just super enjoying himself.
One
He
of the fun
starts,
little Maggie bits that we get before we get the ding dong
yes,
is like Marge walks away, and then Maggie gets the cheese, the Insta cheese, and I immediately puts it into her mouth, and we just see her whole like cheeks blow up very
like
violently
a
and quickly.
like
It's
a
pretty funny.
chipmunk. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
she's chipmunking the cheese whiz
I
there.
also love the design of the camera that John brings to the house because it's a very old rectangle, like, matchbox with a flash on it type of
Yeah, yeah.
design. Because of course it's not going to be like your standard camera of the era. It has to be something that looks like it came out of like the
It's got to
50s.
be camp.
Yeah, exactly.
I love he's talking to Marge. They have the very bland curtains
The
in the
corn
kitchen.
curtains. Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I had these same curtains. When you found them, didn't you just die?" And Marge is like, "Not really. They had corn on them. Kitchen corn."
Yeah, I love how Marge is very matter of fact about the whole thing, but it's just kind of enjoying the intention and the ride. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
He's so charming, and they're just eating it up. And so next we have the scene he's with Homer. They're
Well, I
flipping
want to
through the
cut you off real
records.
quick because there's a little bit of a theme that we get in the episode that happens after the corn part,
Oh, what's that?
where so Marge is kind
Oh,
of
right.
laughing, and so Marge is like and does like a light slap to John, and because John did the same thing, they reciprocated. So Bart saw
It's
that
like, oh,
mannerism.
you.
Yeah, yeah, that's oh, stop it. Um, the old thing, and then so there's a theme where Bart starts to pick up on the mannerisms of John and mimics
Right.
them. So it does the same thing to Homer, which just gives a light little slap, and then Homer immediately starts choking the boy in the classic strangle fashion, and Bart is like,
Why,
Homer,
you little.
Homer, comedy, comedy. Oh, John, I'll be just another minute.
I love how it's like he doesn't stop. He's like, "Do pardon us while I choke him out."
It's a very fun
Um,
misdirect.
I do.
So anyway, then
That's
we get
our
the next
favorite.
scene.
Yeah. So yes. So they're flipping through the records. Um, there were interesting records in there that I looked up, and they're all actually like old campy records,
Oh, really?
like the new Christie Minstrels. The wedding of Linda Bird Johnson is the wedding of Lady Bird and Lyndon Johnson's daughter
Oh,
at
okay.
the White House. It was like a big princess wedding. I learned about this today. And there was the staff sergeant Barry Sadler. And I doubt that any of our listeners are familiar with this, but you know, some of y'all Gen Xers will recognize the similar things where it's like a guy in his uniform is kind of baby faced and he's crooning like in uniform.
All
So
right.
that's some fun campy stuff there. But I do love where Homer's like, "Is this all camp?" He's like, "It's all camp." Why? You're camp too. I could just wrap a bow around you and slap on a price tag.
Yeah.
Which is Homer's not picking up on these not so subtle kind of gay mannerisms
Not at
in
all.
this. And
Totally obtuse. And they start dancing to some records, and I love how,
to
like,
it's I like the nightlife. I
yeah.
like to boogie.
And then we have
Um,
Marge, Lisa, and Bart looking through like the door of the kitchen, and I love
and the
Lisa's
two
line,
men.
where he's like, "John likes Itchy and Scratchy just as much as we do, maybe more." And shout out to my godmother's roommate Richard, who was like very much reminded me of that line because I would talk to him about The Simpsons ad nauseum when I was younger. So it kind of cracked me up. Oh,
So our Homer has just had the most wonderful time dancing with his new friend.
yes.
And we cut to the next scene, which begins the kind of crux of this episode, where he's like, uh, that John is the greatest guy in the world. We have to have him and his wife over for drinks sometimes. He's not picking up on it. And Marge's like, I don't think he's married, Homer. And he's like, oh, a bachelor. And she's like, Homer, didn't he seem a little festive to you? And he's like, yeah, couldn't agree more. And we get one of the best lines of this. Marge is like,
Yeah.
Homer, he prefers the company of men.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? And
So
then that's a wonderful line. So then Marge is like, I'm going to spell it out clearly. Listen carefully. John is a homo. And Homer's like, right? Sexual. Ah! We
and
get a
then they cut the
classic.
black for the ad, and that scene, Homer was wearing pajamas with slippers on. And then we come back from the ad break. Now you wouldn't really notice this because if you're watching it on DVD or Disney Plus, there's no ad, obviously. Homer is fully dressed in his typical white shirt and blue pants, even though it's supposed to be a continuation of the scene. And I love how John Waters called this out in the commentary. And he's like, that doesn't look right. Continuality problem here.
They were like, what are you going to do?
I also want to mention that there's a lot of double meaning in this episode. So John will continue to like say everything has camp value. That kind of highlights how the Simpsons are super popular as well, and they've been worth a ton of money. So that whole joke of being like put in a bow and sold indicates that Homer is worth a lot of money. He's making Fox and all these creators tons of it. And it's very interesting how we get this sharp twist where Homer's on board for everything until he finds out that that John is gay, and all of a sudden he becomes a
He's
complete
flipping out.
asshole.
Total asshole.
And I think it's really important to show that Homer was on board until this one moment, because that which kind of goes into the greater message of this episode.
Absolutely. And Marge is us in this episode,
Correct.
I think, where she's very much offended by Homer's behavior. And he gets super offensive in this. And there's some jokes in there like, like, what's wrong? he was a sneak. Like, you know me, Marge. I like my beer cold, my TV loud, and my homosexuals flaming.
Yeah,
Like a
and I
great line.
like that's a great line, and I also like how Marge is the voice of reason and not
Yeah,
Lisa, because it would be very weird if it was coming from like a 6-year-old girl or 8-year-old girl, however old she is,
8 years old.
8 years old.
Yeah, agreed.
So I really like how they made Marge stand up to Homer and call out the husband for being a fucking dumbass,
One
and
100%.
that is also in itself a great message because not every there might be certain people out there who think Marge is kind of a pushover because she's a stay-at-home mom, and supports Homer through thick and thin,
Mm.
but like she stands up to him all the time to make
Oh
him
yeah,
a better person, and this episode is an excellent example of that character quality.
agreed. Because I mean, he's being a complete shit.
He
And
is.
so the next scene is John Waters pulls up and he has the great convertible like Cadillac with the leopard print interior.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's
Homer's
great.
speaking out the window like, oh, like this guy. And John points the ray gun at him
Yep.
and does our favorite line, Zap.
Yeah,
Give me one, Josh. Gotta
the
give me one
Rex
here.
Mars atomic discombobulator. Zap.
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 So silly.
And we also
And
have the creepy robot Santa from Japan, which
well,
will
so
be
wait, first there's a big one callback to Bart acting like John because Homer's freaking out and Bart goes, "Oh, Dad, you're the living end." And so he's the crux of the episode again is Bart starting to emulate John
correct.
Waters.
Yeah.
So, but yes, then they head out to the car because they're gonna drive around town with John in the car, and I mean the Santa robot is very random.
Yes. It's also one of those toys that would probably scare me as a kid. Like it looks like
Oh, oh,
now
oh.
I wonder if like this spurred someone in Futurama years later to come out with the evil Santa that they have was a
The
robot.
robot.
Now
Yeah.
I'm just making this connection as we're
That's
talking now.
funny.
I have no idea if that's the case, but like it does kind of like give me Futurama vibes, but I know that came out way later than this episode. And the only reason we mentioned the Santa robot is that it's going to come into play
It comes back
later.
to play
It's
later.
literally Chekhov's robot.
Mm-hmm. Steelworkers Union Local 606. This great country was built on steel, and the Steelworkers Union Local 606 wants you to join the team. We don't just cross girders, we slide them in smooth as a whistle. You'll be working side by side with some of the finest, juiciest men in this great country. Hard working men. Men who rise at dawn and get to work. Men who fill out a pair of jean shorts like two country hams. Men who like to sniff each other's armpits and spit in each other's mouths. Men who are not afraid of a fight or a spanking. Steelworkers Union, Springfield Local 606. We work hard and we play hard. Real hard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they get in the car and he's going to give them the tour of Springfield, the camp tour of Springfield. And there's a couple of random, like that's where Kent Brockman did this thing. And that's where Lupe Velez bought the toilet she drowned in. Like he's being so charming. You don't even care that you don't know what the hell he's talking about on
Right.
there.
And the family was doing the classic, like my family would do this when we go to Christmas lights. It's like, okay, everybody, you ready? Ooh. Ah. And then like a Marge takes a photo of something. Like it's pretty hilarious. They're all in. They're loving it. And I
They
love how
are.
they end the tour at the Shaboom Kaboom Cafe, which is designed as a giant pink mushroom cloud that's a 50s diner. And on the menu below the sign, it says Little Boy $3.95 and Fat Man $12.95. So this is our second big historical reference of the episode. Those were the bombs that were dropped on Japan to finish out World War II. Um, And if you look at the design of that diner where they're sitting inside, you'll see like, the models of an Atom and the Enola Gay and all these other planes and like a, set photo. Like they really went in for this small one little scene 100% with the design, and it all matches perfectly. Like it you know,
Very well
like,
done.
yeah.
Like you want to go to this restaurant now,
I do want
Josh.
to
I
go to
think.
this restaurant. I love 50s diners, man. Give me a club
You know
sandwich
what?
and a milkshake, like even though I'm
It's a
lactose
classic
intolerant.
LA thing. It's a classic
Yeah.
LA
Yep.
institution. What's funny is I did not. I'm so glad that you caught that because it is one of those kind of things that I love, that kind of detail, and I did not pick up on it. So
Yeah.
that's
It
awesome.
helps when you have to pause the episode to get like the sign right, and then you notice all the smaller details. And then there's another line that I like that's coming up here that I paused it on, and I noticed like I'm like, oh wait, when you pause and you actually look at it, which I don't recommend regular viewers do. This is just what us nerds take care, go the extra mile.
Nerds.
But I was really impressed with the level of detail, because at first you think like, oh, it's just a 50 style diner, whatever,
And you were particularly fond of course, it being the gay episode, they
Yes.
pull no punches, and Waylon walks up to the table.
Yeah. And then John is very funny. He's like, Waylon, here are the Simpsons. I know the Simpsons. So this is your sick mother, John. Don't
He's
do
like,
this to me, Waylon. What a sassy bitch.
Exactly. Don't do this to me.
I also
This
love
is your
how
sick grandmother.
Smithers is so pissed. He's like, I know the Simpsons.
Listen, Waylon is somebody who gets things done. He does not pull punches.
Yeah.
Our poor Waylon. But he does apparently have a life outside of his burned sexuality.
He does. He does.
But they have a wonderful time. The kids and John just have the most fun. And of course, Bart now has the ray gun and comes home. And Homer is like, oh no, did they turn you gay? And Bart's like, zap.
And then we get a series of vignettes, as you call them, where
Of Homer watching Bart
yep.
progressively seem more gay.
And one of my favorite ones is Bart is wearing a Hawaiian shirt, walks by Homer, and Homer's like, "Hey, boy, where did you get that shirt,
Where'd you
Bart?"
get that Hawaiian shirt? Yeah.
I don't know. Just came out of the closet.
None too subtle. And of course, Homer not being subtle is like, oh, he means that literally.
Yeah.
I love
yeah, and then the
Marge
dessert.
brings out the like little Debbie cakes dessert.
Yeah, I love those. I used to eat those Hostess kind of crap all the time,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. They had, I mean, I liked the little cupcake ones with the squiggly white
Yeah.
icing line on top.
I also
More
like the
than I
ding
liked the
dongs.
pink fuzzy ones.
Yep.
Yeah, those are
Yeah.
ding dongs.
We
I
used to
think.
put those in
I
like
don't
the
know.
freezer for like during the summer, so we could have like frozen chocolate treats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. good stuff.
And of course, Bart chooses the pink fuzzy dessert. I was like, no, the kid's turning gay. And then he and Marge are arguing about it because Homer just understand like throughout this until the very end, not trying to get anything away. Homer's just being a complete dick the whole time. And he's like mad at Marge because the boy is like being, seemingly effeminate. He's like to Marge, he's like, this is your fault. Do you have to be so effeminate around the boy? Which I thought was a funny line.
Well, and I also like how Marge is just basically like, well, if anything, you need to spend more time with your son if you're so concerned.
Right. Exactly right.
Like, point Marge.
And so the next morning, Homer comes down to do just that. And of course, now Bart is in a wig, like one of those like bouffant 50s wigs from like the Supremes, singing, in the way you sound, oh no, it's not the way. You don't listen to a word I say. It's in his kiss.
Yeah, and dancing and having a gay
it's pretty fucking gay, Josh. I'm not gonna
it's
lie.
super gay. Yeah, absolutely. But Bart has done this before. There was when Lisa was trying for the pageantry, and he was wearing heels. And after a while, he's like, I don't know, I think I can handle this. And he was like clicking along. Much like Bugs
As
Bunny,
a young boy should.
Bart has no problem cross-dressing when the scene or the moment demands.
Homer is not as pleased and snatches the wig off his head. And he's mad now. And he goes to the kitchen. He's like, I should have known it was you because John Waters is sitting at the table with Marge. And he's like, "Good morning, sunshine." He's still being very good-hearted about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And then there's this random ass, and I wonder if any of our listeners have ever had this, but he's like, Marge's like, "John brought us cactus candy." So
Yeah.
I looked up cactus candy.
I've never had cactus candy
It
either.
is candy. It tasted like sour apple, and they made it out of cacti.
Okay.
And it actually nearly caused some cactus species to become extinct because it got to be so popular. I had never heard of it. And I thought it was like a reference to something that I didn't get, but apparently it was just a random thing because the writer ate it the day before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Isn't that weird how the writer was like, "Oh, they gave me a box of cactus candy. That's campy. We'll throw it in the episode."
Well, Homer is mad. And he's like, "Listen, John, you seem like perfectly nice, but stay the hell away from my family. Like, it's getting serious." And then John is like, "Well, now you don't get any candy." "No, that's cruel. Take a teensy piece."
Yeah, and then John calls him out. And he's like, "Homer, what have you got against gays?" And then he goes into a rant about how terrible gays are for rooting the Navy and taking names like Lance and Julian.
Bruce.
Yeah, it just kind of highlights how dumb actual homophobia is with brilliant satire.
Oh, so at this point, Homer is really upset because he thinks Bart is going fruity. And
Yes.
so he's like, "I know how to make you straight, and I'm just going to do it." Yanks him out of the house. And he drives down the. They have that scene in the car where it like Homer's being super awkward because he
Yes.
puts his arm around him. And he's like, "Oh, I don't want to do it too long." And he says, "I just want you to know I love you, boy, but like not in that way, not in that way."
Yeah,
Like,
it just shows the insecurity of masculinity at that
that's
time.
exactly right.
And overthinking any little action because you're worried you're going to be conflated with a homosexual community.
This is problematic, particularly in the U.S.
Yes.
Um, but we did get one of our favorite scenes in this where he drives him out to the middle of the highway, plops
Yeah.
down like a
Yeah.
deck chair, and puts him in front of a big cigarette fucking billboard on
Yep.
the highway
Yep.
with boobies. There's
Yeah.
two girls with their boobs hanging out, and he's like, "Boobies are gonna fix my queer ass son,"
Yeah. It's
which
two
is
women
age old
of a college
concept.
age, wearing kind of not skimpy lingerie, but lingerie nonetheless, PJs,
Co-eds.
doing a sexy pillow fight.
Very little covered
Yeah,
on
and they're
either.
advertising
Boobs
Larmy
are
cigarettes.
definitely
Yeah,
busting
no,
out.
they're moving.
So
uh,
then we get so
I love
he leaves it
how
there
like
for a while.
Larmy cigarettes slim edition, right? And like that's how they're gonna sell it to women.
Hmm.
Is like, hey, do you remember when you were sexy and had sexy pillow fights? Smoke Laramie Slims.
Laramie
And Patty
Slims.
and Selma is like, I don't think we ever did that.
So this is Homer's grand plan, and he comes back after some time of Bart just sitting here staring at this, and he's like, "How do you feel, boy?" And Bart's like, "I don't know. I kind of want a cigarette." And Homer's like, "That's a good start. What brand do you want?" And he goes, "Anything slim." And he's like, "Dope."
Dope.
Such a good gay reference. Slim ass cigarettes. Did you ever smoke for any period of time?
Not really. I bought one pack of Marlboro Reds because I was going to trivia night at this bar when I was at CSUN, and I smoked like 4 or 5 that night, and had the worst, just smelling. I had to like wash all my clothes, wash my bed, cocked up a bunch of fucking shit, and I was just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm just gonna stick to weed.
Yeah, for real, man. Those were serious cigarettes back in the day too.
I also saw my
Mm-mm.
mom quit smoking cigarettes, so kudos to
Yep, that'll
her.
do it. Mine too.
After having Sam, my youngest sister, she just stopped because she would always quit when she was pregnant, and then we were just kind of like, why don't you just stop? Like why make it back
Yeah.
up again? Yeah, so I'm kind of glad that all went away. Grandpa also, we would go to Sizzler because it was one of the last restaurants in the valley that allowed you to have cigarettes at the meal.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Oh,
yeah,
smoking.
I don't like it. I've even reminded myself too, if there's a lady that I'm attracted to and I'm trying to hit on, and then like as soon as they go to
Oh
like
no.
smoke on the cigarette outside, I'm
No,
just like,
no, it's a no go for
that,
me.
that
Like if
sucks.
you smoke every once in a while, like you like I'm in a Tuesday
Like,
poker group, and sometimes the guy that's their excuse to
sure,
smoke when they don't smoke any other time. But I agree, it's a big no go for me.
if there was some occasion where like we were having cigars and we're
Sure.
just, I don't, not on the regular, but if it's, fine, I'll have a cigar.
So the boobies did not work for Bart, and Homer is still trying to, father and son day to make him straight, and he decides he's going to take him to the straightest place on earth, Josh, which is an active steel mill.
Yes, an Ajax steel mill.
And we meet Roscoe,
Hey,
who
I'm
is like the
Roscoe. How you
foreman.
doing?
And he's like, Homer's like, Roscoe's going to show us around and get a firsthand look at all these real American shows doing what they do best. Bart's like, why would I want to see that? And Homer's like, you'll thank me on your wedding night. Like,
Yeah, then I love how Roscoe turns to all the workers. He's like, "Hey, you guys, I want you to meet the Simpsons."
and everybody's like,
Hello.
hello.
And then we get a series of just excellent jokes. So, like, why don't you take one and I take
He
one?
goes, stand still. There's a spark in your hair. Get it. Get it.
Hot stuff coming through.
And then Bart's like, Dad, why did you bring me to a gay steel mill?
I don't
And he's
know.
like, I don't
I
know.
don't
You're
know.
all sick.
Play nice.
We get this great one. Where the guy just goes, oh, be nice.
And we get the little wrist
Because
flap.
he's being
Wrist
super
flap.
offensive, by the way.
Yeah.
Homer's freaking out. Is the whole world gone gay? And then we get,
No, I'm going to stop you there. First, we get a whistle. Oh, God, what now? We work hard. We play hard. Boom, 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 boom. And then it turns into the Anvil strip club.
Everybody dance now.
And like floors start to rise out of the the elevated
The
position.
lights start going. It turns into a full nightclub
named the Anvil, and they even had the classic like steamy hot guy in front of a giant fan that was very popular in music videos at the time. Fabulous, just fucking fabulous.
It's hilarious.
Now
it's one of those things that everybody remembers from this episode because it is such a perfect transition.
And then John Waters, we like this in the DVD commentary, actually used to go to a gay bar called the Anvil that was known for its high levels of debauchery. The Anvil knows what fuels the steel industry. Real men. Men who aren't afraid to let sweat drip down their chiseled abs. Men whose strong yet sensual shoulders carry the weight of industry. Men with buns of steel who aren't afraid to show them off. And for those real men, the really jacked hunks, we offer the hottest gay club in town. The Anvil. You work hard, we play hard. Yeah, but Waters definitely mentioned that he would go to this bar and he was offended with the level of debauchery.
Oh, that's right. That's exactly right. That's what it was.
And so like when John Waters is like, I'm good. It has to be some wild shit.
Yeah, when John Waters is
oh my God.
Look, his mainstream movies are crazy.
Yeah.
So of course Homer is just despondent at that point. And he goes to the only place he can think of to go to commiserate, and he goes to Moe's. And he's like, and the entire steel mill was gay. And Moe's like, where you been, Homer? The entire steel industry's gay. And aerospace, too. And the railroads. And you know what else? Broadway.
I love that Broadway joke. It's so great.
It's great.
It's also amazing to me to further highlight how stupid homophobia is that he goes to the pinnacle of masculinity, Moses and Barnard Gumble. He doesn't go to like Werner Wolfcastle.
Yeah, they ain't hanging out with a lot of women.
He doesn't go to Krusty. He doesn't go to like any of the other men who are like Quimby or whatever could be leading some kind of thing, right? No. He goes to Mo Sislak and Barnard Gumble.
Oh, that's it. I love, so, he's like, how do I make him into a man fast? And Mo's like, well, let's see. There's times you send a boy off to war, shoot a man, fix him right up. But it's not even when he wars no more. Thank you very much, Warren Christopher.
Which is
a
hilarious
joke
too,
I think
because
you
it
probably
like
got.
totally pretends that there's not like gay sex happening in wars. You know, like
It's from to somebody I just recently met that was in the Vietnam War. But Barney has one of my favorite lines where he goes, "Hey, better yet, Bart could shoot a deer. That's like shooting a beautiful man." I love that.
And I think that's the only line Barney really has throughout this whole episode, like that has any kind of meaning or punch. Like he's kind of there in
That's
the
like shooting
background.
a beautiful. I can't do Barney.
Yeah.
So
It's
they're
like
like,
shooting
"That's
a
right.
beautiful man. Huh?
That's exactly."
He'll be
You're
hurt.
better at this than me. So Mo's like, yeah, if the boy bags a deer, then all the diet sodas in the world won't change it back.
I fucking forgot
So
about
this
the
is
diet
their
soda
big
crack.
plan, is they're going to take Bart hunting and turn him into a man. Did you ever have that experience?
No, my dad was not that kind
Yeah.
of man. He was the president of the chess club in high school. Was a computer programmer. Wore the members only jacket. That was what my dad was. Wasn't anything like that. So
yeah, my family
I've never
being
been
from
hunting.
the South, we did have some, but luckily we never shot deer. We would shoot like pheasant.
Okay.
And quail is mostly what we'd shot, and I did that a couple times, and I preferred to shoot skeet.
Yeah, shooting skeet is fun. I've done that before.
That was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was not for me. Like there's people in my family that still go.
I've gone shooting before. My buddy when he moved out to Vegas got an AK-47 and a shotgun, and his brother had like a 9mm, and I think an AR-15.
America.
So like we decided to go out to a place in a desert and outside of Las Vegas and shoot
blow some shit up.
And my God, it was a lot of fun. Scary at times, the amount of power that those things have. I also shot like a Colt revolver from like the 1800s and a Woodstock shotgun.
Cool.
And that was a lot of fun. Being the history guy, I was just like, holy shit! And that fucking 45 kicked hard.
Yeah, that'll mess up your shoulder, dude.
Oh yeah, no, I had a big bruise on my shoulder that lasted for like a week or so. But I also have nothing against hunting. Like I met somebody at Brenton and Katie's wedding who was hunting, and like he does it right. He does it to keep the numbers down, and he uses as much of the meat as possible, and he hunts with a bow and arrow because he's a real man.
Well, that's a bit, like that's just not my hobby. But yeah, I mean, yes, I do not have any problem fucking hunting deer. Right. Deer are the rats of the forest.
Yeah. Now, if you're going off of endangered animals on safari because you want to feel like a big shot, that's when I start to have problems for it. I'm like, if you're hunting has a place and it has a purpose, but when they call it like a sport and you're like basically have a bunch of fat assholes who don't even get out of the truck and they just release some bird from a cage and they shoot it,
waddle over to take a picture with the probably the game warden actually shot it and just told you did.
Yeah that's some burn shit right there.
So that's the big idea, is they're going to take Bart hunting, and so they're at the mall, Barney and Mo and Homer buying gear, and they're all geared up in like the red like check flannel and stuff like that. And Homer sees the family is in cockamamie's again talking to John. And so Homer runs over and he's like, "Stand aside, Marge. I'm taking the boy deer hunting. He's going to grow up straight for once." It's a little bit and Marge is like, "What? You never went hunting before and you're perfectly straight." He's like, "Oh yeah? How long since you had a baby?"
As she's holding Maggie.
And then Lisa says, "How does killing a deer make you more of a man?" And Homer goes, "It just does. Name me one gay Indian."
That's so weird. What a weird line to have.
It is this back and forth. It's very odd, but it's hilarious. And then John walks up and goes, something's gonna die. The way he delivers that line is classic, but then he, mocks Homer's hideous hats that he's wearing, which is absolutely hideous.
Yeah, and then he's
And
offering him some kind of like safari crocodile Dundee looking hat.
so that's it. They snatch Bart up and they're off to the woods to shoot a deer. And they're getting out of the car, and Moe's like, "Remember, guys, the truck only holds 6 carcasses."
Yeah, I also love how on the drive up, they're like, Bart, you ever want to go hunting? He's like, I don't know. Something about a bunch of guys alone together in the woods. Seems kind of gay.
That whole scene I skipped over is great. And they're like, "That's a very immature attitude, young man." But
Yeah.
Homer's like, "Well, you're gonna be a man, Bart." And Bart's like, "You're gonna teach me to drive?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, let a Twinkle Toes drive Betsy, right?"
Yeah.
And Homer's like, "No, you can't drive. You're only 10, so you're
Yeah.
going hunting."
Right. Yeah, it's kind of hilarious. And I also love how like the trip is a complete bust. And it kind of
Oh
reminds me of the
man,
opening of King of the Hill when they're just drinking beers and like time is
yeah,
passing quickly. So you just see like empty beer can after empty beer can litter
it's just there
everywhere.
all night long. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing going on.
Yeah, and then
He's slowly just go through the case of beer.
2,000 miles for this?
Homer is pretty distraught, right? So but
Well,
my
so I love when they just quick is where they're heading, when they're,
yeah.
now away from it. And Barney says, "We just suggest you stayed at the bar and shot some rats." I was like, hey, those ain't your rats, Barn.
So Mo cares more about the rats than he does about the gay community. That's pretty damning.
100% always.
I also
He
love
has
how
a
Mo is
close.
still trying to cheer up Homer on the drive home.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He's like, "Don't take it so hard, Homer. You still got the other kid, Lisa. Let's take her hunting. Make her
Yeah.
into a man."
She won't ever go for it. She's a vegetarian.
He goes, "Oh, jeez, Homer, jeez. You and Marge ain't cousins, are you?"
I love that line.
It's
I love the
such a
line that he
good
thinks
line.
that like, okay, if your son is gay and your daughter is a vegetarian, you must have fucked your cousin. Like,
The
this is
way
so
he goes,
good.
"Oh, Homer, jeez, a cheese."
Yeah. You're not gonna get the fucked up chin like the Hasbergs. You're gonna get a vegetarian and a gay guy. Like, what the hell?
It's so funny. That's one of the seminal moments of this whole. Jeez, Homer, a vegetarian.
Yeah, and so
But
his
Mo does
solution,
see a
they come
solution
up
here.
across a solution while they continue to drive. They come across Santa's village that have live reindeer. Did you ever go to Santa's village? There is a shitty theme park in Southern California that is called Santa's Village, and we went there a couple of times. They have like giant bees that ride that goes around the park, and you could go sit with Santa anytime you want, even though it was the middle of the summer.
You can see Santa in the summertime because right now he's at Santa's Village in the San Bernardino Mountains. 13 big rides provide fun for the whole family. Visit the petting zoo, see Santa's reindeer. There's food and treats from the Pixie Pantry and the Good Witch's Bakery and lots more. Santa's Village is fun, forest, and fantasy, all rolled into one. Santa's Village in the cool and clear San Bernardino Mountains. On Highway 18, just 30 minutes north of San Bernardino. Now open daily.
I have been to similar things. I can't remember if I ever went to that in my 15 years out there, but it's very familiar.
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely like the F League of theme
but I've
parks in
seen.
Southern California. You know, we have like Disneyland, Magic Mountain, Knott's Berry Farm. Those are the big three. Santa's Village was just like, God, this is crap.
It was pretty trash. It's been mocked in so many different shows and movies
Yeah, and then we
that
would
may
see
be why I feel like I've been there.
the local ads growing up too, and like my parents would just be like, "We're not going there again. Let's just go to the LA Zoo." Like, what
It's
do
one
we?
of those places. It's
We
like
could
a
go to the
dead
mall.
body
It's
hidden.
even better. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
The mall.
Oh my goodness. So Marge and Lisa are worried about Homer and Bart, and John figures out there's only one place to shoot deer, which is the Santa's Village theme park. And
because
of course, John knows that. Of course, he does. He's the
because
expert of.
John's like they're like, you're gonna go out and find a deer and make Bart shoot it. And he's like, "Deer, ha, not around here. They all migrated north when the state park converted to AstroTurf." Which
Fantastic, perfect.
throwaway line.
And then they cut
But
back and we
they've
get
got a clue now.
they're basically making Bart shoot the deer in a pen. He
In a
starts to
pen, the
cry.
reindeer.
Right. And like Mo is like, oh, here comes a lot of looks. And so they
And I love that
basically,
he's sleeping and they like just prop him down, wake
yeah,
him up, throw a beer in the hand and like shoot it.
yeah. Yeah, well, because that's what you do is you wake up a child and immediately throw a gun into their hands. Nothing bad will
Absolutely.
happen.
I think that's parenting 101.
Yeah, I mean
If I'm not mistaken.
no, you don't really. It's the
Dr. Spock.
It's the hidden fourth sentence of the Second Amendment.
Facts.
Only certain people know
Facts.
that it's there. So I love how though like Bart like is basically I don't want to do this.
Like I'm
And
not gonna
so
do that.
they all do another brilliant safety thing, which is they turn their back on a child with a loaded gun and basically said, shoot the thing and then we'll turn back around. And you hear what is you think maybe a
Like a
gunshot,
crack.
but it's a clash of antlers because the reindeer are starting to stampede and go nuts.
Yes, they're getting ornery. Our reindeer threatening to trample them. And you love the part where Homer, like the other two, Mo and Bart like dive under things.
Correct.
But Homer's gonna save the boy.
Yeah, so basically, Homer does the heroic thing and puts Bart over his head, and they start crashing into him, and Bart does the obvious question of, "Dad, are you hurt? Just my bones and organs."
It's brutal. Homer gets the shit kicked out of him so much in this show, and it's brutal, and we love it. Also, his soul, like in the last episode.
Yeah, and so John comes to the rescue with the robot Santa Claus.
The robot Santa Claus comes back.
It starts fires rockets,
oh,
and it hits the little toy rockets hit the reindeer, and the reindeer's like, "What the fuck is that?"
Oh, all right, I'm done.
And I love how Bart goes, "It's Santa, all right," and he's kicking ass.
And Homer's like, "It's a miracle," and John comes on. He's like, "No, Ultra Suede is a miracle. This is just good timing."
And immediately, Marge goes to hug Homer, and she's like, "You feel softer than before." And a weak Homer goes, "I've been tenderized."
So at this point, one of my favorite lines is Barney and Mo are peeking out from their hiding places, and Barney's like, "Is it okay to come out, Mr. Gay Man?" And Mo is like, "Yeah, I'll do anything you say. Anything."
And they continue their belly aching as they're walking back to their respective vehicles.
So
and this is when Homer finally has his change of heart.
Well, so I love the line where Barney is like, Mo, we were saved by a sissy. Mo's like, yeah, we'll never live it down. Ah, boy, it looks like it's suicide again for me.
And then Homer he goes to defend John. He's like, hey, this guy isn't a sissy. He's a fruit. I mean, queer. That's what you want to be called, right?
Queer.
Well, that or John.
And
then what does Lisa say? Like, she goes like...
This is about as tolerant as Dad gets, so you should be flattered.
Queer it is, then.
And so John's won his respect, and they're buddies again. And Homer now feeling, like he's learned the lesson here. And we get them driving home, and he does have a sweet message, which at the time was not something that was said, where he's like, Bart, maybe it's just the concussion talking, but any way you choose to live your life is okay with me. And it's a very sweet line.
He thinks you're gay. He thinks I'm gay. Everybody dance now. Boom, 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 boom.
Everybody dance now.
Yeah, the standard. We need a party song.
Don't waste time. End up with the dope rhyme. Come to the rhythm, jump to the rhythm, jump.
Yeah. Everybody loves that song.
And then we get a wonderful message and a very special episode where it says, "Dedicated to the steelworkers of America, keep reaching for that rainbow."
Well, excellent, man. Well done.
That's awesome.
What are your final thoughts on this episode?
So my final thoughts are, when I watched this episode for the first time in reviewing for this podcast, it definitely bothered me because, and I didn't find it very funny, But going through it and dissecting it, I really, really did come to love it, understand it better, but love it on a deeper level. The jokes are dated and somewhat offensive. Midgets and Indians and Confederate statuettes and things that seems like maybe they weren't as necessary. Like they're trying to offend on purpose. A little bit to me, but I love John Waters' character. And for the time, this really was, as days it is, something that was very forward thinking, very progressive, talking about something that, and The Simpsons were so beautiful for doing this because they used their platform to call out some of the dumb shit that our fucking puritanical bullshit society has been struggling with for centuries. And so I really love in context them doing that. Like we said, this is one of the first times on TV you had gay people talking about being gay, and that was pretty awesome.
Nice. Well, my final thoughts is this episode is fabulous. John Walters is a great guest, and his character reminded me of many gay men I knew growing up. The layers of satire that highlight how ridiculous homophobia is are subtle but firmly present. I again like that Marge is confronting Homer on his beliefs. It would have been very strange coming from Lisa, who's another moral center traditionally for this series. And I thought the episode delivers a good message wrapped in humor, but it doesn't beat you over the head with it. It never really felt like it was preachy. It's just people trying to exist and with each other, which I like. I could totally hear how some of the stuff felt outdated, but I also take that into context, and if you take it into the time period where it came out,
Absolutely,
it's pretty amazing for what they were able to pull
forward
off.
thinking, 100%.
Yeah.
Except for the fucking midget line.
Yeah.
Well, it's just out of play. It was completely unnecessary.
And I'm sure we will run into stuff like that as we continue to do this podcast, where we'll find stuff.
Oh, 100%. Like, well, and they were habitual line steppers, which we love about them, certainly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Well, great job, you.
Great job, me.
Robin, do you hear that sound?
What's that, Josh?
Well, then you know what time it is. It's the
Crusty Brain Seal of
Approval. So this is your pick. You can go first.
I was gonna give this, when I first watched this, like a 0. Like it really did touch a nerve in the modern context with me. Okay. And through this process, I am now going to give it a 5 because of our discussion today, where I learned that this was written before Ellen came out on television, and none of this stuff was done. And these things are so important for me as a gay man to start to see normalized human beings being gay as opposed to ostracized members of our society.
Nice. I am also giving it a 5 for all those reasons. Plus, I love the zap joke. And the gay steel mill. But to be serious, so like as we kind of go through this process of our podcast and try to rank things, right? I am starting to get the idea of like there are stuff that is just joke after joke after joke, which is a solid 4, and then there's the ones joke after joke after joke with a message. Yeah, and I think this one was the latter, and which is why I'm giving it a 5 as well.
One of the reasons that we love this show so much is because these shows were very, very smart. On top of their jokes, which were smart, they delved into things nobody else was delving into at the time. They had people on that nobody had on at the time, right? And they were having clearly a blast doing this, and it just bleeds into the whole thing.
I also think having John Waters as the guest star and not doing someone who's
if they'd had Richard Simmons, it would have been very, very different.
And or the worst case where they had someone who wasn't part of the gay community play a gay character.
So am I mistaken? I think Richard Simmons may have still been in the goddamn closet.
Could have been
hilariously in '97.
I mean, it was a glittered stone fucking, fedora. No, not fedora. Boa, feather boa closet.
It's exactly right.
Nice.
In a
Cool.
masculine way. It's my
my
girlfriend, she's in Canada.
Yeah. We call that the Tim Scott. Anywho, and that's a wrap for Sacrilicious with Robin and Snurts. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're feeling generous, then please leave a 5-star review with a few sentences. We are currently on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast. Here are my shout-outs for the week. Stuffing, mashed potatoes, candied yams, pumpkin bread, food comas, and of course, the raddest fan of them all, Dr. Roxford.
The doctor.
Want to hear more from your old pal Snurts? Then check out the PlayStation Experience on your podcast platform of choice. I can also be found on most of the things at Lord_Snurts. Robin, any outros or plugs?
Happy holidays to our listeners. Can't believe that 2024 is nearly over. Josh, I had a moment the other day where I was like, 2023 or 2024? Where are we? So incredible that 2024 is coming to an end. Have a great holidays. Looking forward to spending that with my family and my friends and my loved ones, including all of our listeners.
Aww.
Aww.
Yeah, same thing. Happy holidays, everybody. As we mentioned on our last episode, this will be the final one for the calendar year, and we will pick up in early January. Robin picked Homer the Smithers from season 7. So enjoy your Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. And until next time, folks, smell you later, true believers.
Ha ha. Zap. Zap.
Oh, be nice.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.